Hello, my book friends. It's the first week of October. It's time to sort out this book box. I am so excited to talk to you about everything that I've been doing in September. It has been a very busy month. Full disclosure, I didn't get a lot of reading done, but I did a lot of bookish and fun things. So at the beginning of the month of September, I completely wiped out my old website, Simply Laura Lee, and relaunched it and changed its focus, and it is back up and running. I'm very excited about that and to see where it goes. It's going to talk about everything bookish and education, motherhood, learning, wellness, all those things that get me all excited. So if you have time, pop over there to www.simplylauralee.com and see what I'm up to. I'd love to interact with you on my website. I also did a lot of traveling. I made a trip over to London to visit my daughter and did some very bookish things I'm going to share with you while we're here today. And then I also made a trip to Chicago with my husband while he was on business, and I found a little time on my own to do a little bookish exploring, which was really fun, and I'm going to share that with you as well. So let's get started with the box before we get to all the new things. Oh, before we get to the box, I want to share a book that I read this month on Audible, and I do count that as reading, but I always forget to include it because I don't physically have a copy. But this month, I did not want to forget to include it because I absolutely adored this book. And oh, there it is. I thought it had disappeared. It's called The Bookbinder of Jericho by Pip Williams. I had no prior knowledge of this book before I started reading it. I just downloaded it simply, honestly, because of the cover and the title. It sparked my interest, but it was so good. I was so blown away and so surprised because you don't always stumble onto something that's a perfect fit for you. And I did, and I've been shouting it to anybody that wants a recommendation to read The Bookbinder of Jericho. It is such a warm, just incredible story, and the story centers around two twin sisters, Peggy and Maud. I have a trouble getting that out, so pardon me for that. Peggy and Maud are twins during the time period of World War I. They live in the UK in the town of Jericho, which butts right up next to Oxford University. And there's kind of I don't want to say a division because people do interact, but there is definitely a difference in how people are viewed, whether you are a townie, which is someone who lives and works in Jericho, or whether you are a gown. And a gown is anyone, a student or professor, or basically anyone associated with Oxford University, and they are perceived to be above in pretty much all ways to the townies, and they don't mix. So Peggy and Maud, I don't want to give too much away, do have a background history with gowns and towns through their mother, and it's a really interesting perspective considering the time period. I was kind of shocked by it, but also very proud of it. I was really excited by it. So Peggy and Maud let's get down to it. Peggy and Maud work in the bindery. Maud has some learning difficulties, and Peggy is very bright, but is very attached to her sister. And earlier on in their life, there was a decision to be made about continuing school or leaving school and going to work. And Peggy chose not to continue on with school, but to go to work with her sister Maud because she did not want to be separated from her. The reason she thought she didn't want to be separated from her turns out to be different than what it actually was. This is a really powerful story about what we think and what actually is, what we want, our dreams, our desires. It's heart-wrenching. It does take place during World War I, and the refugees come in from Belgium and France and Brussels and elsewhere, and the town has to rise to the call of duty, either as a soldier or as a nurse or as an aide, just helping out the war effort. The characters in this story, I adore Peggy and Maud, but there's so many lovely characters in this book that your heart breaks for and just wants to know them. I wanted to know them. I wanted to go to Jericho. I wanted to hang out with them. If I would have read this before I went to London, I probably would have gone to Oxford just to be there and to relive it in my mind. It was that great of a story. It's really a great story about women. It is taking place during the time of women's suffrage in the UK, and there is reference to that. There's reference to sisterhood, not just with blood relatives, but with other women. It's truly beautiful. Women from different classes, so to say, and different backgrounds, and I adored it. I hope you will check it out. Again, that's The Bookbinder from Jericho by Pip Williams. It was fantastic. So that's one of the few ones that I got to read, but I did love it. I did start, there's another one missing in here. I totally forgot. I started Persuasion. It's next to my bed, so I don't have it to hold up, but I did start Persuasion by Jane Austen. It's kind of my nighttime read after visiting London, and we'll get into what I did when I was in the UK. It seemed apropos to read a Jane Austen book when I returned. So it's my slow read at night. I just read a few pages before I fall asleep, and I'm loving it. It's one of the few that I had not read, and I'm enjoying it. I really am enjoying Anne. She is a interesting character. So we'll probably talk about that more next month because I'm going to continue it. The other book I've been working on, and I'm not finished, is Finding Your Own North Star. If you watched last month, you know this is the book that I am reading along with on my forum, The Coffee Clutch, on my website. Each week I post what I've read, what I think about it, the reactions, and people can have the opportunity to share their experiences, their reactions. It's been really good. It is a second time read. The first time I read it, it really blew me away. This time it seems a little dramatic, to be honest, but that's because I've kind of done a lot of this work. But it makes me feel really good and about the work that I have done, and kind of points me in the right direction to not forget that there's still more work to be done. The points in this book are very valid and will set you on a good path. I think it's a great read, and I highly recommend it to friends that are looking for where to go next or going through big changes, empty nest, divorce, menopause, all of those things, big changes, and sometimes you need to reconnect with that true self, and this book will help you do that. So there's that. The only other book I actually finished this month is Hello Beautiful, and this book made me cry. It did make me cry. It was gorgeous. It's about 4 sisters in Chicago, and they're coming of age and living their lives and growing together and growing apart. I guess I read a lot of books about women's empowerment and women's choices. There are men in this book, I swear, but it is beautiful. I would highly recommend, if you want something that's really character driven and about personal choices and growth and finding yourself and your path, and being true to yourself, I think is probably the biggest thing, is being true to yourself despite what other people say and being okay with their reactions. It's a beautiful book. I would highly recommend it. It's going to go back onto my shelf, and I will probably reread this again because it was lovely. All right, so let's get into all the stuff I didn't read. I just didn't get to. Eileen Hildebrand's The 5-Star Weekend. It's a fun read. I picked it up this summer. I wanted to read it. I just didn't get around to it. I probably will put this back on the shelf until next summer. I love summer reads in the summer, not so much in fall where we are now. So it's time for hot tea and candles and those kind of things, not beach reads. So that will hold till then. All right, the next one, Wednesday's Child Stories, Yi-Yoon Lee, by Yi-Yoon Lee, author of the Book of Goose. I know nothing about this book. It is from my Ann Patchett's book club, so I'm excited about it. I've yet to get anything from Ann Patchett that I didn't love, but I don't think that I'm going to be getting to it anytime soon, so I'm going to add it to my TBR shelf back in my office. So let's put that one to the side. All right. Oh, A Course in Miracles. This I picked up last month when I was actually it was the month before. I was really thinking, I really wanted to get into really some higher level thinking and analyzing myself and my choices and the things I do in my life. I, as you can see, have not opened it yet, but I hope to get to it soon. So I think I'm going to go ahead and leave it in here. The next one is the same. It's the Dao Di Jing Ba Qigong interpretation by Dr. Yang and Wing Ming. So this is all from that time where I was really wanting to do some deep dive into my spirituality and into myself. It's going to stay in here as well. The next one is The Creative Art, A Way of Being by Rick Rubin. And this one is also going to stay in. I didn't get to it. And it was the book that sparked the purchase of the other two books. So I'm definitely those are staying in. That's all nonfiction. So I think I probably got my fill of nonfiction in here for the next few months. Nina George, The Little Village of Book Lovers. I love Nina George. This is a sweet, I haven't read it yet, but all of her books just give me a warm, cozy feeling. It's pretty small, so I'm gonna leave it in here because I think I will be able to get to it. The last two are also nonfiction that I have not gotten to yet. The Talking to the Sky by Amy Mayo is a memoir and about a shit show. It says here on the cover, a memoir of living my best life in a shit show. I definitely want to get to this, but I don't think I'm probably going to get to it next month. I think right now my priority is getting into some of these others when I finish my Finding Your North Star. And I also have some new things that I picked up during my travels that I think I'm going to want to save room for. So this is going to go to the TBR shelf and I will come back around to it. This book has been in here for a couple months. It's The Art of Teaching Children by Philip Doan. I really want to read it. I promise I do, but I probably am not going to get to it in the next couple months. So I am going to put it on the TBR shelf as well. So now I got a little space in the book box. Let's see what I'm going to add to it. I want to share some of the things that I have picked up during my travels. So my first trip was to London to visit my daughter, and I don't know if you've picked up on this, but I love London. So I was ecstatic about getting to go, and I knew this was going to be one of the last trips I get. She's finishing up her master's program and will be moving home at the end of the year. So I will have one more trip to go pack her up and come home, and I don't know how much time I'm gonna have, so I kind of made a pact with myself. If there's anything that you really want to do, you need to do it before you come before you come home from this trip. So I did 2 little field trips out of London. One was to Bath. I'd never been to Bath, and I am a huge sucker for Jane Austen. I love her. I love the movies. I love the books. I love hearing about her. So I went to Bath, her city, and went to the Jane Austen Center, which was fantastic. I had tea in Mr. Darcy's room. I think it's called Tea with Mr. Darcy, in the tea room on the roof. It was very interesting. They had great memorabilia. It was wonderful. I walked around the Grand Circle. I went to the Abbey. It was a great trip. I also hit some bookstores while I was there, of course. So I want to share some of those with you. So Mr. B's is in Bath. It's a bookshop that was recommended to me by a bookshop owner that I visited in Antwerp. That's right. And he said, oh, if you go to Bath, you have to go there. He gave me a whole list of different museums to go to, or not museums, bookstores, sorry, while I was traveling through Europe, and Mr. B's was one in Bath. I have to tell you, they were fantastic. First of all, the bookstore is beautiful, but the staff was incredible. I spoke to one woman and she asked if I was looking for anything in particular, and I said, yes, I really want some books on motherhood from different parts of the world. And since I'm here, I'd really like to find some books about motherhood, parenting, etc. in the UK. And she said, that's not really my wheelhouse, but let's ask somebody else. So she passed me off to a gentleman who was fantastic. We talked for 20 minutes about parenting and different parenting styles, and he had 2 recommendations for me that I picked up. The first one is Holly McNish, Nobody Told Me. And this is poetry and parenthood. And basically what he said is this follows her pregnancy and the birth of her first child and her emotions. It's almost like a journal. Like I just popped it open to page 70. It says March 1st, 9 months and 1 day pregnant. 7:15 p.m. She's now overdue. So I'm really excited to hear another woman's perspective, what goes on, and someone that lives in a different country, how it's different. And I'm very excited about the fact that she has poetry in here. I think I'm going to really enjoy it. That's going to go on my TBR shelf because the other one is going in my book box. This is called The Book You Wish Your Parents Had Read and Your Children Will Be Glad That You Did by Philippa Perry. And he had read this book and said it was amazing, it was incredible, and this was the one that he said the other one was hilarious, he enjoyed it, it was funny, but that for what I was looking for, he felt like this was a really good selection. So this is going to go in the book box because I've decided this book will be my next read with me book in the coffee clutch on my website. So if you have any interest in reading about motherhood in the UK and someone else's experience in parenting, pick up a copy and I'll start it as soon as we're done with Finding Your Own North Star. All right, so I'm gonna add that into the box. So we've still got room. So the other place, I went to another bookshop while I was in Bath. I went to Persephone. My daughter was like, oh, you have to go there. They have beautiful books. And I had never been there. I really hadn't seen much about them. So I went in, and it is a beautiful bookshop. And all of the books are paperback. Well, no, I think they did have some hardbound books, but most of the books were paperback, and they are bound in this very simple gray with beautiful end papers, and the end papers have a matching bookmark that comes with each one. So I was wandering around. There were lots of book recommendation cards from the staff that were fantastic. I wandered around, I read all of them, and I decided, that I was going to get somebody I hadn't read anything by that was an English female writer. And I picked up Dorothy Whipple, which I have never read anything by her. I'm sure if you majored in literature, then you have, but I did not and have not. So I'm really excited. I picked up 3 different books by her. They Were Sisters was one that was a recommendation, had a recommendation card, and I love to read about sisters and relationships. So I picked that one up. Someone at a Distance was recommended by the bookseller. She thought I would very much enjoy it, so I'm going to add that. And then the Random Commentary by Dorothy Whipple. This is actually her thoughts and her ideas. So I thought that would be a great addition to 2. I know she's written a whole lot more than that, but this is a good place to start. So I am going to add, I don't know that I will get to it, but I am going to add They Were Sisters by Dorothy Whipple into my box. So still got a little room. Let's keep going. Also, while I was in the UK, I took another field trip. And this field trip was actually to Chawton, which is where Jane Austen wrote most of her novels. And to say it was incredible is an understatement. So I took it to, my daughter went with me on this one. She had already been to Bath, so she let me do that Bath on my own. But she went with me to Chawton House, which is Jane Austen's home. It's actually, the Chawton House is the big house which her brother owned. And she and her sister and her mother lived in a cottage. After their father died, they financially weren't able to stay in Bath. They moved around for a little while in Bath to less expensive housing, and at one point finally her brother stepped in and said, hey, why don't you guys come live in this cottage for the rest of your life? You're welcome to be there. And she remained there until she got sick, and then they moved to be closer to the doctors. Jane, I've read her books, I've seen her in movies, but going to Bath and going to the Jane Austen Museum and then going to Chawton House and seeing the setup that they have to talk about her and learn about her was incredible. I actually got a little emotional. We stood in a room where she read Pride and Prejudice to her family for the first time. I couldn't believe it. It was crazy. I got to see the tiny little table that she wrote all of her novels on. And I'm telling you, tiny, it's like the size of this little table here. It was so small. And that she wrote on single pages because she didn't want the servants or anyone else to know what she was doing. So she wrote on single pages and then folded them up and put them in her pocket. Crazy. It's so crazy to me. So one thing I did pick up there, the book I got there, was Jane Austen's Wardrobe. The reason I did get this one is my daughter is getting her master's degree in fashion history and cultures, and I thought this was something that we could both enjoy together, because me from Jane Austen and her from the fashion history point of view. That's going to go on my shelf till my daughter moves home, and then we're going to go through it together. So great addition. I'm very excited about it. Next and last from the London trip. If you've been following me or watching me, you know I love children's literature, and you know I love the series Pages and Company by Anna James. She's a UK writer, and her final book launched in September, and the UK launching happened to be while I was there. So I pre-ordered my numbered and signed copy, and then I went and picked it up myself. I was so excited. I didn't get to meet her. She wasn't there when I went to pick it up, but I did get it. I'm very excited. I love this series, and I will get to this probably not in the next month. Maybe it would be a fun holiday read. I don't know. We'll see when it comes back, but it's definitely going on the TBR. Okay, the other trip I took was to Chicago, and I only have 3 from there. So one is my husband has wanted to go to this restaurant that is this 12-course tasting gastro experience. Holy cow, was he right? It was amazing. It's called Alinea, and he was so sweet, he pre-ordered a copy of their cookbook. Not that I think I could actually cook anything like they cooked. It was incredible. Stuff that looked like artwork, and there was also definitely a playful side. We ended the night with an edible helium balloon, and we were both talking like Alvin and the Chipmunks. It was a very fun, very incredible evening, once in a lifetime. The thing I am very excited about with the cookbook is not necessarily the recipes, because I really don't know if I'm talented enough to do those, but the whole front of the book is all about the building of the restaurant, the concept, about the chef, all of that great information. I love creative people. I love hearing about them. That's the chef, that's him. It was very cool. If you're in Chicago and you really want to have a experience and you're okay with spending more than you would ever spend on a meal, Alinea is the place to go. Once in a lifetime. And I believe it is multiple Michelin stars, which, to be able to say, ooh, I've had a Michelin star, that's kind of cool. It was really interesting. Lovely. So that's going to my kitchen. All right. While I was there, I also did a little museum and a little bookish tour. I did not even know this existed, the American Writers Museum is in Chicago. Did not know this. It is fabulous. It was so much fun. I totally enjoyed it. They had so much information. I spent several hours wandering around reading, and then it's a very interactive museum, so you can turn things, you can read about other things. There's even activities to play around with writing yourself. It was fantastic. So I did pick up a beautiful little copy of The Wizard of Oz. I don't own a copy of The Wizard of Oz, and this one in their gift shop really caught my eye. Look at that cover. How beautiful is that? I'm so excited to have one in my library now. I will be stamping this one with my library stamp and putting it on my children's shelf. I'm super excited. And then the last book from Chicago I picked up, I did go to I don't know if it's Dry House or Drew House Museum. I had planned on doing a very large book tour of bookshops, and I went to like 2 or 3 in a row, and they were closed. And I was a little frustrated, and I said, okay, I'm just gonna go back to the hotel and have some tea and chill out. And I was walking, and I stumbled upon this museum. It is in a historic home, and it is gorgeous. It is one floor. The architecture and the design of it was unbelievable. And the house has passed through a few different hands until it was bought by Richard Drew House, whichever, and he restored it back to its original condition, opened it as a museum. It's so interesting to see. It's so ornate and so beautiful. And I was trying to snap pictures and all of that, and it was just not doing it justice. And in their little gift shop at the end, they had a huge book, and then they had this little one, and I was like, okay, this one can fit into my carry-on. But it has beautiful woodwork, and I don't even know that this does it justice, but the main hall, I'm gonna open this up just so you can see. That's the main entry hall of this home. It was actually someone's home. And the Art Deco and the postmodern designs, there's a whole floor, I believe it's the second floor. Not only do you get to see how the rooms were decorated and how they lived, they also have an exhibit in there on architecture, and from the French architect, and of course it slipped my mind, that designed the French metro. It was a really cool experience. I happened upon it. I walked in, there was a guided tour starting in 5 minutes, and I said, oh, I guess this is what I'm doing now. So I had a great time. It was fantastic. And I haven't spent a lot of time in Chicago, but Chicago is very cool. I really enjoyed it and hope to go back again. Okay, 2 last books. So these 2, I recently underwent a whole bunch of testing and checking out my memory and how I was doing. And basically what came out of it is that we already knew I had ADHD. I found that out much later in life, around 49. I'm soon to be 54. And I did a battery of testing, and it came out that my memory isn't the issue. It's all down to the attention. And I have done obviously I knew how to work with children that struggled with attention deficit and hyperactive disorder. I did a lot of that. When I was finally diagnosed when I was 49, a lot of the information and the strategies that I used to kind of get myself doing better came from the strategies that I used to use in the classroom, and I adopted a lot of that at home for myself. And I had a nice long conversation with the woman who conducted, the doctor that conducted the testing, about how surprising it was to me that my memory isn't an issue, that my processing isn't an issue. I've always thought I was a slow processor. And she was like, no, not according to the testing. Your memory is really strong. Your processing is very fast. You just can't pay attention for an extended amount of time. And we talked about she had listed a number of suggestions to help me. Well, all of those suggestions were things that I was doing. And I told her, I said, these are things I've really been adopting into my life. I got a lot of it from my classroom experience, and then also a book called Fast Minds that I read a few years ago, which is about adult ADHD. And I asked her, being a book nerd, is there any more information, any books, anything you would recommend? And she sent me 2 books, so I ordered them, of course, right away. The first one is ADHD 2.0, and the second one is Taking Charge of Adult ADHD, Proven Strategies to Succeed at Work, at Home, and in Relationships. Those sound pretty good. So I'm gonna put one of these in the book box. I got a lot in the book box. You know I'm not getting through all of this month, but I could at least maybe start picking and choosing and getting into some different things. So I think I'm gonna put this one, Taking Charge, I like the sound of that, in the book box, and this one is going to go back on the TBR shelf. So I think I got a lot. It looks like I am heavily into nonfiction coming up for the month of October. Nothing that's really fall or spooky-ish, but all things I want to get into and I want to learn about. So I'll see you in a month. I'll tell you how I've gone through this. I do have a couple trips planned. Don't know how much book shopping I'll be able to get on those. I'm heading to Nashville to celebrate my mom's birthday, and then I'm heading to New York to do a little visiting with my son. If I get any time at all, it'll be in New York, and if I am able to make a visit to some of my favorite bookshops, I'm sure I'll be bringing home a few things, and I'll let you know about that next month. So happy reading. I'm glad you're here. If you're still here after this huge, long diatribe about books, please let me know your thoughts. If there's anything that I have talked about that you've already read or that you want to read, I'd love to hear your comments. I'd love to start a conversation. Like, subscribe to my YouTube channel, or head over to simplylauralee.com and join the conversation over there. Happy reading, and hope you have a great fall and a wonderful October. See you soon.